Rodgers signed an extension to stay with the team while his top target, Davante Adams, was shipped to Las Vegas for some picks. Now the Packers and that bad man are looking for a new connection. Certainly, if you look at our roster right now, we definitely need to get some speed in that room. Matt LaFleur said Tuesday at the NFL owners meetings in Palm Beach, Florida, we need a legit guy that can take off the top of the coverage. We've lost a guy that was pretty good at doing just that. Speaking of pretty good, we welcome in Mel Kiper Jr., Rob Ninkovich, and Mike Tannenbaum back here with us. Gentlemen, thank you for rejoining. And Mel, I'm going to start with you, sir. The Packers have a big need at receiver. Who should they target in the draft?
A lot of draft capital, Molly, and an opportunity to maybe stay at 22 and look at Jameis.
Oh, it looks like we
move
lost
up to
Mel.
get a Garrett Wilson from Ohio.
Mel, you got me? All right, we're dealing with some technical hits. We'll try to get Mel back. Meanwhile, Mike, you jump in on this one. Where do you think they should go from here for help at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, Jamison Williams from Alabama. Molly, he is explosive. I was at the Georgia-Alabama SEC championship game. He was the best player on the field. He had 7 catches, over 180 yards, and he's a guy that tore his ACL, may not be ready until halfway through the season. But when you think about a player that could come in and not replace Davante Adams, but give him some of that explosion, especially this year, where it's so hugely consequential, Jamison Williams from Alabama could do that.
Rob, I want to bring you in here, and it definitely seems like the easier path to the Super Bowl is in the NFC, where the AFC is just stacked at this point, especially with Russell Wilson going to Denver. We know how loaded the AFC West is now, best in the division. Where does Green Bay stack up amongst the NFC's elite now that he lost Davante Adams, arguably the best receiver?
Well, it's tough to put them on a list right now as of today because there's still a lot more offseason to go, and there's going to be some transition here on the team. These rosters are not set before they go into offseason workouts even. So, you know, when I look at just the NFC in general, the Packers really haven't gone up at all. Like, they haven't done anything. Better yet, they've gone down, in my view. So, you know, you lose your big-time receiver. You don't really have a pass rusher. You talk about their defense. That's the one need that they do have. They need a pass rusher to get to the quarterback. So I have them 5th on my list right now, as of right now. So number 1 being the Rams. Obviously, they're Super Bowl champions. Number 2, good old Tom Brady. He's back. So I'm going with Tampa at 2. And then for 3, this one was tough. 3, 4, I was like, man, who am I going to go with? I really think the Cardinals this year are going to be better than they were last year. So I'm going with the Cardinals. And then there's a team that I think that could be really, really sneaky, and that's the 49ers. With having Jimmy G back, knowing that he's going to be your quarterback, with, you know, the young quarterback behind them still probably doing that platooning of where they're coming on and off the field. But I think the 49ers are going to be a better team this year as well. So that puts the Packers to me at 5.
Wow. All right. Five does seem a little bit low, but Davante Adams was a huge loss. Mel, you got me now. Good to see you, sir. In case you missed any of what we were just saying, I essentially had asked Rob there, where do the Packers now stand amongst the NFC's elite? He had them 5th. But Mel, what I wanted to ask you is obviously a huge hole at receiver now, losing Davante Adams to the Raiders. Where do they go from here? And Mike T had said Jamison Williams.
Yeah, Jamison Williams, do you stay at 22 and wait it out with New England picking 1 slot ahead, or do you try to move up and get a Garrett Wilson from Ohio State or a Drake London from USC? You know, back in 2011, Atlanta went from 27 to 6 to get Julio Jones. At 28, they could maybe jump up with that pick and keep 22, or keep them both and look at an offensive lineman like Tyler Smith from Tulsa. Rob was talking about pass rush. There's some underrated pass rushers in this draft as well. Deep wide receiver group. They've had 4 really good second-round picks and a good third-round pick in their history. I mean, Davante Adams isn't the only great second-round pick they had. Greg Jennings went in the 2nd. Jordy Nelson went in the 2nd. James Jones went in the 3rd. You have guys in that round area like Christian Watson, North Dakota State, Calvin Austin III out of Memphis, Sky Moore out of Western Michigan, Isaiah Weston out of Northern Iowa, Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. They're really going to be good 2nd and 3rd round receivers. So the depth at wide receiver, Molly, really helps Green Bay in this draft.
Absolutely. Mike, what do you think about what Rob said of the Packers being 5th now in the NFC potentially?
Yeah, I would actually have Dallas in front of Green Bay right now because despite losing Randy Gregory, they were able to bring back Dorrance Armstrong. They were able to sign Dante Fowler, who has a history with Dan Quinn. And when you look offensively, while they did lose Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson, they were able to keep Michael Gallup paired with CeeDee Lamb. As Mel just alluded to, there's plenty of wide receivers in this year's draft. So I think when it's all said and done, I don't think we're giving Dallas enough credit. And I think because of the strength of Dak Prescott, I would put them in the top 4 in the NFC.
Oh, I wish we had Stephen A. here today, just so he could hear that. The Cowboys ahead of that bad man who lost to Jimmy G. It is certainly my day, gentlemen. We will leave it there. When we come back here on First Take, Mel, thank you so much for being with us. I know you got plenty more to get to with draft right around the corner. All right, many quarterback dominoes fall so far this season, but Jimmy G still with the team with Trey Lance waiting in the wings. Kyle Shanahan says the Niners are still in no rush to trade Garoppolo.
We brought Trey here to be that eventually, and I think that'll be sooner than later. But when Jimmy gets his surgery, and we can't upgrade our team by getting some good picks until surgery, until people feel good about that, I'm all right with that. I mean, we're not just getting rid of him to get rid of him.
All right, Nick back with us, and Mike T as well. Dominique, what do you think? Does Jimmy G or Trey Lance give San Francisco the best chance to win?
I think it has to be Trey Lance, and there's a lot of question marks about how good Trey Lance can be. But John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan traded away more than 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance. So that suggests to me that they didn't think Jimmy G was the answer. And no matter what they thought, we watched last year. Like, we've watched Jimmy G play, and we all know the feeling that we had in the closing minutes of close games is that Jimmy G was not the answer. He is not the type of quarterback that is going to take them over the edge to being a guaranteed championship contender. And I do think that he's good enough to be carried. Like, he's not going to destroy that team. He proved that by getting them to a Super Bowl several years ago. Like, he's not going to crush that team, but it seemed like in those big moments when you need someone to make a big play, he was unable to do it. And Trey Lance is not going to get better by sitting on the bench. So it might be a rougher regular season this year, and it may be a rough season altogether. But I think putting Trey Lance on the field and letting him improve gives them the best chance to win a championship, if not this year, then the next.
Yeah, I totally disagree with Nick. Jimmy G is 31-14 as a starter. They average 28 points a game when he's playing quarterback. And over the last couple of years, took him to the Super Bowl, almost beat Kansas City. And in the championship game, if Jarsky Tart catches that punt from Matt Stafford, they're back in another Super Bowl. So I don't think he's perfect by any stretch. And I really like Trey Lance a lot, but he's a massive question mark. You have a team that's ready to win right now, not in a year, not in 2 years, right now. And Jimmy G is a more established veteran quarterback. And while we think Trey Lance may be really good one day, for this season, I'm hard-pressed to understand why the 49ers would ever move on from Jimmy G. I would keep him. I would start him. I would probably give Trey Lance some reps here and there. But no question, in 2022, Jimmy G is the best quarterback for the 49ers.
You start him because that's how you get better. You get better by playing. You don't get better by sitting on the bench. And by running, platooning 2 quarterbacks, I think that takes away from both of them. Like, that's practice time that Jimmy G is not getting if he's your starter, and Trey Lance is not getting the full attention that he needs if he's the starter. So I don't think that platooning them is the smart move. Maybe putting in some sort of red zone package for Trey Lance or a 3rd or 4th down package for Trey Lance is one thing. But I would say, first of all, QB wins, like, come on. We're past that as a stat. Like, QB wins is not a stat that anyone that cares about football respects. And second of all, the Super Bowl that they got him to, that the 49ers took Jimmy Garoppolo to, he threw an interception with his eyes closed just before halftime. Like, let's not forget that happened. And last year, yes, if Jaworski Tart catches that interception, they're back in the Super Bowl. But let's also remember he threw for less than 200 yards in 2 playoff games, less than 200 yards and 2 interceptions in 2 playoff games. The championship game, he had over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. One of those touchdowns was a screen pass that he threw to Deebo Samuel that he took for a 44-yard touchdown. So we can like cherry pick particular numbers and QB stats and pretend like Jimmy G is the answer. But Jimmy G seems to me, last year when we were all watching, I remember sitting there knowing that they needed something from Jimmy G, watching that Cowboys game that, yes, they won, but they needed Jimmy G to make plays, and he missed wide open receivers on back-to-back occasions in the 4th quarter. They needed him to make plays in San Francisco, and he threw an interception on a late out route in San Francisco, in Green Bay, at Green Bay. Like, these are things that happened not that long ago. And you can point to Jimmy G having success, but I would say that Jimmy G was a passenger. He wasn't steering that. And when they need something from him, he hasn't done it. I'm not here to guarantee that Trey Lance can do it, but there's a question. Maybe Trey Lance can do it. We already know the answer is that Jimmy G might close his eyes and throw an interception in the biggest game of his life. He might throw a red zone pick against the Green Bay Packers. He might also miss wide open receivers. Like, we can point to the numbers here and there, but we can also point to the actual things that happened.
Mike T, is it fair to call Jimmy G a passenger? Because you could also argue he didn't cost them Super Bowls, right?
Yeah, he's not a passenger. He's more of like a car that can self-drive at times. And context is everything here, which is I understand that the quarterback stat of wins is not a one-size-fits-all approach. But in this situation, Jimmy G with Kyle Shanahan, sometimes the best thing you can do offensively is run the ball or punt, not turn the ball over. And the question is, Trey Lance or Jimmy G this year? It's not Jimmy G versus the world, because I'm not saying he's a world beater, but I'm saying in this situation, it's worked for a long time. And in some of those games, Neek, that, for example, the Green Bay playoff game, Aaron Rodgers was struggling in the same conditions that Jimmy G was. And I think he has a really good feel for this offense. He understands where, again, some long handoffs to Deebo Samuel, I know that inflates his statistics, but still a positive play for the offense. And the whole notion of having a small package for Trey Lance, I'll say this. On some of the great Jet teams we've had that went to championship games, there were small packages for guys like Brad Smith. And working with Rex Ryan, who had a defensive background, he would say that really hurt preparation from a standpoint that even though it may be a 15-play package, it takes away from your preparation. So I think a small package for Trey Lance only enhances the overall offense of the 49ers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask you, because you weren't in the conversation earlier, where you have the Niners in the NFC. Because when we asked Rob, he had them third, he had the Packers fifth, and then Mike even had the Cowboys ahead of the Packers as well.
Yeah, I heard the Cowboys. That surprised me considering what's happening to them this offseason. But I mean, I think the Niners are at the top of a very weak conference. I could see the Niners winning if they move on from Jimmy G. So I think third is a good place for them. But I would say to the idea of having a Trey Lance package, like, I agree with that. I just don't agree with the idea that you can platoon them in and give them both practice time. Like, you need to install that package in camp and then not practice again, because it forces defenses to prepare for it. But if you have to practice it every week, that is also taking away from your preparation time for your quarterback. And if you can consider Jimmy G anything other than a passenger, I don't know. Like, the win stat, it's a beautiful stat. It's fun. But let's think about who was playing quarterback for them when Jimmy G was not in there. They were people who are not NFL starters. So it's not like you're dropping him into a situation that he's being compared to a legitimate starter. These were like Nick Mullins, like guys like that. No disrespect to them, but that's not the type of quarterback you want to win a championship with. So I think that we know Jimmy G's ceiling, and Jimmy G's ceiling is throwing interceptions in the red zone, throwing interceptions in the Super Bowl, and not elevating his team. You need a quarterback in the modern NFL, as we've seen. You look at the quarterbacks who have won and competed. It's possible to win without one of those quarterbacks, but you need a guy that's going to make a play, a big play at a moment when it's not expected. We've yet to see Jimmy G do that. We don't know if Trey Lance can or can't, but at least there's some hope that he could.
Yeah, and self-driving cars don't always make.
Yeah, I don't trust them. You need to look at the stats.
Don't always accelerate the way